The chill of late autumn seeped into every corner of the old farmhouse, wrapping its cold fingers around the ancient timbers and weathered stone foundation. Outside, the sprawling maples and oaks had donned their fiery coats of amber, crimson, and gold, and the ground beneath was a mosaic of fallen leaves crackling softly in the wind. The sun, a low golden orb sinking behind distant hills, bathed the countryside in a soft, mournful light, like the closing of a chapter in a long, winding story. Sarah pulled her wool coat tighter, her breath forming tiny clouds as she climbed. The creaky steps to the porch, each step groaned under her weight, sounding like echoes from the past, reminders of countless footsteps taken here before her. The farmhouse had been in her family for nearly a century, passed down through generations like a silent witness to their joys and sorrows. But this visit was different. Today was the day she had dreaded and yet awaited, a day to say goodbye. The front door creaked open, releasing a breath of warm, lavender-scented air that had clung to the house for decades. The familiar scent was a balm to Sarah's frayed nerves, grounding her amidst the storm of emotions swirling inside. She stepped into the dim hallway where faded wallpaper curled at the edges, and photographs of stern-faced ancestors stared silently. From the walls, the house was steeped in history, its wooden floors worn smooth by years of footsteps, laughter, and tears. She paused, letting her fingers trail over the banister as she made her way toward the back bedroom. Inside, the room was bathed in soft light from a single lamp with a delicate lace shade. Grandma Helen lay in bed, fragile and pale, the weight of years etched into the lines of her face. Her silver hair framed her features like a halo, and despite the frailty of her body, her eyes burned bright with a clarity and strength that surprised. "Sarah." "Grandma," Sarah whispered, moving to her side and taking her hand, which felt like delicate porcelain in hers. The pulse was faint, but steady, a fragile tether between life and the inevitable. Helen's lips curved in a weak but genuine smile. "You came," she said, her voice barely audible, rasping from illness. Sarah's throat tightened. "I'm here, Grandma. Always." Helen's gaze held Sarah's with unwavering intensity. "There's something I must tell you, something I've kept hidden from the family, a secret that could change everything you thought you knew about us." Sarah's heart raced. The stories Helen had shared over the years, tales of distant relatives, strange happenings in the woods, whispered family legends, now seemed to pale in comparison to the gravity in her voice. "What is it?" Sarah asked, leaning closer. Helen's breath hitched slightly, but her eyes did not waver. "There's an old chest, the willow chest. It's been passed down through the generations, but it's more than just an heirloom. Inside are truths, memories, and something precious. The legacy of our family lies within it." Sarah's mind flashed back to childhood visits, to the attic she was never allowed to explore. She remembered the faint outline of a large chest covered in dust and shadows. No one ever talked about it. "Where do I find it?" Sarah asked, the urgency growing. Helen's lips parted in a faint smile, and she whispered, "Follow the willow tree by the river, the one that weeps when the wind blows. There, you will find the first clue. Trust your heart, Sarah, it will guide you." A tear slipped down Sarah's cheek. "I promise, Grandma, I'll find it." Helen's eyes fluttered closed, a serene peace settling over her features as the weight of her final words hung in the room. Sarah sat silently, her mind a storm of memories, promises, and unspoken questions. The house, so full of past and presence, seemed to lean in, waiting for her next move. The moment Grandma Helen's breath stilled, the house seemed to exhale a long, sorrowful sigh. Sarah stayed beside her, holding the limp hand, feeling the silence swell around her like a thick fog. Outside, the wind whispered through the branches of the willow tree, as if mourning the passing of a guardian of family secrets. That night, sleep was elusive. Sarah lay in the guest room, the moonlight filtering through the curtains, casting pale shadows across the walls. Her mind replayed her grandmother's words, the willow chest, the willow tree by the river, the hidden legacy. She remembered the stories Helen had told her as a child, tales of ancestors who had crossed oceans, braved wars, and built lives from nothing. Stories about the house itself, built by Sarah's great-great-grandfather, a man of quiet strength and deep secrets. The chest, Helen had hinted, was his most treasured possession. Sarah's fingers traced the lace edging of the pillowcase, the fabric soft with age. She felt a sudden surge of determination. Grandma's final wish was a call, a beacon cutting through years of silence. She could no longer ignore it. The next morning dawned cold and crisp. The sky was a clear blue, the autumn colors bright against the starkness of approaching winter. Sarah packed a small bag, just essentials, knowing this journey might take her far beyond this farmhouse, beyond the family she had always known. Before leaving, she made her way up to the attic. The staircase groaned beneath her feet as she climbed, the narrow space filled with forgotten relics, dusty trunks, faded photographs, broken toys, and there it was, the willow chest. Its wood was dark and weathered, ornate carvings of leaves and branches winding around its edges. The brass lock was rusted but intact. Sarah knelt beside it, heart pounding. She tried the lock, but it wouldn't budge. On the chest's surface, faint initials were carved. E.W. Her great-great-grandfather, Elijah Willow, the patriarch, who had built the family legacy. She knew the key would be near, but where? Her thoughts drifted back to the willow tree, to Grandma Helen's words about following her heart. Outside, the morning sun warmed the earth, and Sarah set out toward the river, the wind tugging at her coat and carrying the faint rustle of willow branches. The river curved through the land like a silver ribbon, and there on its bank stood the ancient willow, its long branches sweeping down like tears falling to the water's surface. Sarah approached, the ground soft and damp beneath her boots. She noticed something unusual, a small patch of disturbed earth beneath the tree, as if something had been recently unearthed or hidden. Her fingers brushed aside loose leaves and soil, revealing a small, rusted metal box. Inside was a folded piece of parchment, yellowed with age and brittle. With trembling hands, Sarah unfolded the note. The handwriting was elegant and flowing, signed simply E.W. The words spoke of love, loss, and a secret kept to protect the family. To the one who finds this, trust the past but look forward. The willow chest holds more than treasures, it holds our truth. Seek the key where the sun kisses the stone beneath the heart of the home. Follow your heart, as I always did. Sarah's mind raced. The stone beneath the heart of the home. What could that mean? As she stood beneath the weeping willow, the wind stirred the branches, and a strange calm washed over her. This was more than a quest for a chest or treasure. It was a journey to uncover her family's soul. The crisp morning air clung to Sarah's skin as she made her way back from the river, the parchment securely tucked inside her coat pocket. The house loomed ahead, silent and watchful, as if waiting for her next move. She paused on the porch steps, the weight of the task settling on her shoulders. This was no simple scavenger hunt. It was a pilgrimage into the heart of her family's hidden past. Inside, the farmhouse seemed even more still than before, the quiet, almost reverent. Sarah moved with purpose toward the kitchen, where sunlight spilled through the window and illuminated a large, flat stone hearth, a remnant from the house's earliest days, worn smooth by generations of fire and footsteps. She remembered the stories Helen told her about the hearth, how it was the heart of the home, where family gathered for warmth, meals, and stories. Could this be the stone beneath the heart of the home? Her fingers traced the cold surface of the hearth, searching for anything unusual. The stone felt solid, but ancient, And then, near the center, she noticed a faint crack running along, the edge almost invisible beneath the soot and dust. Curious, Sarah took a small tool from the drawer, a flat metal spatula, and gently pried at the crack. At first, nothing budged, but after persistent effort, a small panel shifted, revealing a hollow space beneath the stone. Inside lay a small, ornate box, carved from dark wood and bound in tarnished brass. Sarah's breath caught as she lifted it out, the box surprisingly heavy for its size. The lock was intricate, a tiny puzzle of interlocking gears and dials. Her mind raced back to Elijah Willow's note. The key was, "Where the sun kisses the stone." Sunlight streamed through the window and caught the brass lock, making the metal gleam. Could there be a hidden mechanism activated by light? Sarah fiddled with the dials, turning them slowly. Suddenly, with a soft click, the lock released and the lid creaked open. Inside, wrapped in delicate velvet, was a bundle of faded letters tied with a ribbon, a small silver locket etched with the Willow family crest, and a folded map marked with strange symbols. Her fingers trembled as she picked up the first letter. The paper was brittle, the ink faded, but the handwriting was unmistakably her great-great-grandfather's. The letter spoke of forbidden love, sacrifices made to protect, family honor, and a mysterious journey to secure a future for generations yet unborn. The map, Sarah realized, was a guide to a place beyond the farm, somewhere deep in the woods, where the real treasure awaited. For hours, Sarah pored over the letters, each one revealing fragments of a story long buried, of loss, resilience, secrets kept to shield loved ones from harm. As twilight fell, the farmhouse took on a different light, one filled with hope and determination. Sarah knew that finding the willow chest was just the beginning. Her grandmother's final request had opened a door to a past that demanded to be uncovered, and a future she was now destined to shape. The next morning, Sarah awoke to a sky veiled in soft grey clouds, the promise of rain hanging heavy in the air. The farmhouse, wrapped in silence, felt like a sanctuary and a threshold all at once. After the night spent decoding her great-great-grandfather's letters, she was more certain than ever. The path ahead led deep into the forest that bordered her family's land, to the place marked on the map with cryptic symbols and an ancient willow tree. With a small pack slung over her shoulder, containing the letters, map, and the silver locket, Sarah stepped outside. The air was cool and fragrant, with damp earth and moss, and the rustling of leaves overhead blended with the distant murmur of the river. Each step into the woods was a step away from the known and toward the unknown. The forest was alive with subtle sounds, the snap of twigs beneath her boots, the soft flutter of wings as a bird startled and took flight, and the occasional rustle of unseen creatures moving through the underbrush. Sunlight filtered faintly through the thick canopy, casting dappled patterns on the forest floor. Sarah's eyes scanned the map carefully, matching its cryptic markings to the landscape. The trail was faint, overgrown in places, but she pressed on, driven by the urgency woven through her grandmother's last words. As she ventured deeper, memories from childhood surfaced, the times she had played hide-and-seek beneath these very trees, the secret hideouts built with her cousins, and the whispered legends her grandmother shared of spirits that guarded the forest and its secrets. Hours passed, and the forest thickened. The air grew cooler, and the light dimmed as the canopy closed above her. Finally, the path opened into a small clearing dominated by a massive willow tree, its branches sweeping low like a curtain shielding something hidden. Sarah's breath caught as she approached the tree. The air around it was still, charged with a strange energy. The willow's bark was gnarled and ancient, its roots twisting deep into the earth. Remembering the phrase from the letter, "Where the willow weeps in the wind," She reached out to touch the trunk. The bark was rough but warm beneath her. Fingers, as if the tree itself was alive and watching. At the base of the trunk, nestled among the roots, Sarah spotted a moss-covered stone. It was carved with symbols matching those on the map and letters. Her heart hammered as she knelt and brushed away the moss and dirt, revealing a small iron ring embedded in the stone. Pulling on the ring revealed a hidden compartment beneath the stone. Inside lay an old weathered journal bound in cracked leather. The pages inside were yellowed and fragile, filled with a delicate script and illustrations that depicted a journey, one her great-great-grandfather had taken, filled with trials, discoveries, and a powerful secret he had sworn to protect. The journal spoke of a treasure not measured in gold or jewels, but in knowledge and the strength of family bonds. It hinted at a hidden room beneath the farmhouse, accessible only through a secret passage where the final part of the legacy awaited. Sarah's mind spun with possibilities. The journey she had begun was more complex than she imagined, intertwining the past and present, the seen and unseen. As dusk approached, a soft drizzle began to fall, and Sarah hurried back toward the farmhouse, the journal clutched tightly in her hands. The forest seemed to watch her departure, its shadows lengthening and deepening as night fell. Back at the house, she lit a fire in the hearth, the flickering flames casting dancing shadows across the walls. Sitting by the warmth, Sarah opened the journal and began to read, her resolve hardening with each page. She was no longer just a granddaughter fulfilling a dying wish. She was the keeper of a family's hidden history, the seeker of truths long buried beneath time and silence. Morning light filtered softly through the kitchen window, illuminating dust motes dancing in the warm air. Sarah sat at the wooden table, the weathered journal open before her, its delicate pages filled with elegant script and cryptic sketches. Every line she read seemed to pull her further into a world she had never fully understood, the world of her ancestors, their hidden lives, and the legacy she now carried. Her fingers traced the faded ink as she absorbed a passage, describing a secret passage hidden somewhere within the farmhouse itself. The journal spoke of hidden hinges, concealed panels, and a place beneath the floorboards where Elijah Willow had stored the most precious secrets of the family. Sarah's heart quickened. If the journal was accurate, the next piece of the puzzle lay right under her feet. With renewed determination, she began her search. The farmhouse creaked with age, each sound echoing through the silent rooms like whispered secrets waiting to be uncovered. She examined the floors of every room, living room, bedrooms, kitchen, running her hands over the planks, listening for anything unusual. In the parlor, beneath a large, faded rug embroidered with floral patterns, she noticed a slight irregularity in the floorboards. One plank seemed newer than the others, its edges smoother and less worn. Kneeling, Sarah pressed her fingers along the seams and found a small metal latch embedded beneath. Her breath hitched. She pulled gently on the latch, and to her surprise, the plank lifted up with a soft creak, revealing a narrow staircase descending into darkness. A rush of cold air greeted her as she peered down into the shadowed space below. It smelled of earth and wood, ancient and untouched for decades. Taking a deep breath, Sarah retrieved a flashlight from the shelf and began her descent. The narrow staircase opened into a small chamber, dim, dusty, and lined with wooden shelves that held boxes, old books, and an assortment of artifacts wrapped carefully in cloth. At the center stood a heavy oak chest, the willow chest. Sarah's hands trembled as she approached it. The chest was carved with intricate designs of willow branches and leaves, the family crest emblazoned on the lid. She knelt and ran her fingers over the surface, feeling the weight of history pressing down. Remembering the silver locket from the chest in the hearth, she opened it, revealing a tiny key hidden within the delicate folds. Her fingers closed around the key, and she inserted it into the lock on the willow chest. With a satisfying click, the lid creaked open. Inside, carefully wrapped in velvet, were a collection of letters, old photographs, and a bundle of parchment, sealed with a wax emblem, the mark of the Willow family. She unfolded the parchments and found a detailed family tree, complete with names, dates, and cryptic annotations. One name stood out, Eleanor Willow, marked with a red X, and the note, "The Lost Branch, the Hidden Truth." Sarah's mind raced. Who was Elena, and why was she marked as lost? The journal had hinted at sacrifices made for the family's honor, but this was something more. As she sifted through the contents, a small, folded piece of paper slipped out and fluttered to the floor. Picking it up, Sarah found a map, older and more detailed than the one she had discovered by the willow tree. This map depicted the surrounding countryside, with landmarks and a path leading to an old chapel long abandoned. The notes on the back of the map were in a hurried script. "Seek the chapel where the willow's tears fall. There you will find answers and the key to Elena's fate." The air in the chamber seemed to grow colder as Sarah folded the map carefully. She understood now that her grandmother's final request was only the beginning of a deeper journey, one that would unravel the tangled roots of her family's past. Emerging from the hidden chamber, Sarah felt a mixture of awe and resolve. The house was no longer just a relic of memories. It was a living puzzle, waiting for her to unlock its secrets. As dusk settled outside, she placed the letters and maps carefully on the table, readying herself for the next day's expedition. The lost branch of the family tree awaited discovery, and Sarah was determined to follow the path, no matter where it led. The morning dawned grey and heavy with mist, the kind that seemed to seep into your bones and cloak the world in quiet mystery. Sarah packed her things carefully, folding the aged maps and letters into her bag, along with the silver locket and journal. She felt a mix of anticipation and trepidation as she stepped outside, the air thick with the scent of damp earth and fallen leaves. The path to the chapel led through a part of the woods Sarah had only heard about in old stories. An overgrown stretch where nature had reclaimed what time had forgotten. The trees here were taller, their trunks covered with moss and lichens, the canopy so dense that only faint light filtered through. The ground beneath was soft with layers of leaves and pine needles. Sarah moved slowly, the map clutched in her hand, guiding her steps. She paused often, noting the landmarks. An ancient stone marker carved with strange symbols, a fallen tree that formed a natural bridge over a creek. And finally, the faint outline of a crumbling stone building nestled in a small clearing. The chapel rose before her, its once grand walls weathered and cracked, the stained glass windows shattered and darkened by time. Vines crawled up its facade, and the heavy wooden doors hung slightly ajar, inviting her in. As she stepped inside, the air changed, a cool stillness that pressed against her skin like a whisper from the past. Dust motes danced in the shafts of light that broke through the broken windows, revealing pews worn smooth by years of use and neglect. Sarah's footsteps echoed softly as she explored, the silence punctuated by the distant drip of water from the leaking roof. Near the altar, she noticed an intricately carved stone slab, its surface covered in faint inscriptions and a deep groove shaped like a keyhole. Her heart raced as she pulled the silver key from the locket and slid it into the groove. The stone shifted slowly, revealing a hidden compartment beneath. Inside lay a bundle of letters tied with a faded ribbon, and beneath them a small, leather-bound diary. Sarah opened the diary with reverence. The pages were fragile, but the handwriting was clear, a woman's script elegant and steady. The diary belonged to Elena Willow. Elena's words told a story of love and betrayal, sacrifice and sorrow. She wrote of a forbidden romance with a man from a rival family, of plans to elope, and of threats that forced her into hiding. The diary revealed a secret child, a descendant hidden away to protect the family's honor. As Sarah read, the pieces began to fall into place. The lost branch of the family, the hidden child, and the sacrifices made to keep the family safe. Tears pricked her eyes as she realized the magnitude of the secret. Elena's story was not just history, it was part of her own bloodline. Determined to uncover the truth, Sarah pocketed the diary and letters. The journey ahead would be difficult, but she felt the strength of her ancestors with her. The whispers of the willow, the warmth of the hearth, and the unbroken bonds of family. Exiting the chapel, the mist had lifted, and the sun broke through the clouds, casting golden light on the path home. Sarah knew that this was only the beginning of a long quest, one that would lead her to the heart of the Willow legacy. The sun hung low in the sky as Sarah made her way back from the chapel, the leather-bound diary heavy in her bag and Elena's, words swirling in her mind. Each step through the forest felt charged, as if the trees themselves were leaning in to listen, the whispers of the past riding the cool breeze. Arriving at the farmhouse, she was greeted by the familiar creak of the wooden porch beneath her feet. The house stood quiet, a steady guardian of secrets waiting to be revealed. Inside, the fireplace crackled softly as she placed her pack down and settled by the hearth. She pulled the diary from her bag and spread out the letters beside it. The letters were from Elena to her lover, a man named Thomas, whose family had been long-time rivals to the Willows. Their love had to be kept hidden, a secret safe only beneath the willow tree. And now, through these fragile pages, their voices bridged decades. Sarah's eyes skimmed over lines filled with longing and hope, but also fear and sorrow. Elena wrote of plans thwarted, betrayals within her own family, and of the child she carried, a child born into a world that might never accept her. The realization hit Sarah with staggering clarity. She was that child's descendant. The lost branch was not lost, but living, carrying forward the bloodline that had been hidden away, protected through sacrifice and silence. For hours, Sarah read, connecting fragments of family lore with the truths now laid bare. She felt a deep sadness, but also a fierce pride. Her heritage was more complex and powerful than she had ever imagined. As dusk settled, she lit a candle and began to piece together a plan. The diary mentioned a second hidden compartment in the farmhouse, one containing a final letter from Elijah Willow, his farewell, and the key to restoring the family's honor. Guided by Eleanor's words and the symbols etched into the family tree, Sarah traced the outlines of the walls and floors, searching for the secret door. The air was thick with anticipation. At last, beneath a loose floorboard in the master bedroom, her fingers found a small brass latch. With a soft click, the board lifted to reveal a narrow crawl space. Taking a deep breath, Sarah crawled inside. The space was tight and dark, but at the far end lay a small wooden box wrapped in cloth and sealed with wax. With trembling hands, she broke the seal and unfolded the letter inside. Elijah's handwriting was firm, but tinged with sorrow. "My dearest descendants," it began, "if you are reading this, it means the truth has come to light. Know that the sacrifices made were for your protection and the survival of our name. The Willow legacy is not just land or wealth, but the strength of our blood, our love, and our unyielding spirit. Trust in the bonds that tie us together." As Sarah folded the letter, a sense of peace washed over her. The journey was far from over, but she now held the key to moving forward. The dawn crept slowly through the farmhouse windows, casting soft hues of pink and gold across the worn wooden floors. Sarah awoke with a restless energy, the letter from Elijah Willow still fresh in her mind. His words echoed in her thoughts, the strength of blood, love, and unyielding spirit. It was more than a legacy. It was a call to awaken. After a simple breakfast, she set about preparing for the next step. The letter mentioned a distant relative who might hold further clues, a cousin named Margaret, who had moved away decades ago, but was rumored to possess artifacts and stories that could shed light on the family's hidden past. Sarah pulled out the map again, studying the routes leading to the neighboring town where Margaret was said to live. The journey would be long, but she felt an inexplicable pull guiding her forward. Before leaving, she walked one last time through the farmhouse, touching the familiar surfaces, breathing in the history embedded in every corner. Her fingers lingered on the mantel where old photographs rested, images of stern faces and softer smiles, the echoes of lives intertwined with hers. With her pack secured and the journal and letters safely tucked inside, Sarah stepped out into the crisp morning air. The road ahead stretched wide and uncertain, but her resolve was unwavering. The trip to Margaret's home was filled with moments of reflection and anticipation. The countryside blurred past the car window, rolling hills, fields dotted with wildflowers, and the occasional glimpse of a distant farmhouse standing proud against the sky. When she finally arrived at Margaret's quaint cottage, surrounded by blooming gardens and the chatter of birds, Sarah felt a mixture of hope and apprehension. The door opened to reveal a woman whose eyes sparkled with warmth and recognition. Margaret greeted her like a long-lost kin, pulling her into a gentle embrace. Inside the cozy home, filled with antiques and photographs, Sarah began to unravel. More pieces of the Willow puzzle? Margaret shared stories passed down through generations, of sacrifices, betrayals, and the enduring love that bound their family together. Among Margaret's treasures was an old chest filled with heirlooms, letters, jewelry, and a beautifully crafted box carved with the same willow motif Sarah had seen throughout her journey. Inside the box lay a final piece of the map and a key that shimmered with the promise of discovery. As twilight settled, Sarah understood that her quest was not just about uncovering the past, but about awakening to the strength and resilience embedded in her bloodline. The path ahead was illuminated by the stories and love of those who came before her. The morning sun spilled into Margaret's cozy sitting room, where Sarah sat cross-legged on the floor, the newly discovered key resting, heavy and cool in her palm. The willow-carved box, now open, revealed faded parchment maps and letters, fragments of a story that had taken shape over generations. Margaret watched her with quiet encouragement, the years and wisdom in her gaze reflecting a shared understanding. Of the weight carried by family secrets, Sarah's fingers traced the intricate engravings on the key, a craftsmanship unlike anything she'd seen before. It was a key not just of metal but of legacy, an emblem of the trust passed down through generations. The new map piece was a detailed drawing of the family estate as it had been a century ago, including structures no longer standing. A hidden cellar beneath the east wing, marked with the willow emblem. Margaret explained that Elijah Willow had constructed a secret room, his sanctuary and vault, where he had safeguarded the family's most precious relics and documents. The diary, letters, and the treasures Sarah had found were only part of what remained hidden. With hearts pounding, Sarah and Margaret decided to return to the farmhouse. The anticipation of uncovering this final secret was electrifying. Back at the estate, twilight cast long shadows across the fields as Sarah approached the east wing of the house. The floorboards creaked underfoot, but guided by the map, she found the faint outline of a trapdoor beneath a worn rug. Inserting the key into the lock, Sarah felt the weight of generations in that moment. The hopes, fears, and sacrifices of ancestors who had trusted her to carry their story forward. The door swung open to reveal a narrow stone staircase descending into darkness. Lighting a lantern, Sarah led the way, the air growing cooler and denser with each step. The walls were lined with shelves filled with scrolls, artifacts, and a chest emblazoned with the willow crest. Inside the chest lay a collection of documents and a sealed letter addressed to the Keeper of the Legacy. Hands trembling, Sarah broke the seal and unfolded the letter. Elijah's words were filled with love, warning, and hope. He spoke of a great burden, the weight of history, and the importance of remembering, forgiving, and forging a future from the past lessons. As she read, Sarah realized that her journey was not only about discovery, but about reconciliation, the chance to heal wounds and unite a family fractured by fear and secrecy. The cellar was more than a vault. It was a testament to resilience, a beacon to guide future generations. With the letter and treasures in hand, Sarah knew the final chapters of her family's story were hers to write, and that her grandmother's last wish had been only the beginning. The following days at the farmhouse felt charged with an electric energy as Sarah delved into the contents of the hidden cellar. Dusty scrolls, fragile documents, and faded photographs spilled across the wooden table, each piece illuminating a fragment of the Willow family saga. Among the artifacts, she found journals from various family members, including Elijah's own notes. These detailed accounts revealed the family's struggles with rival clans, their sacrifices, and the hidden lineage of Eleanor Willow's descendants. One particular journal entry caught Sarah's attention. A letter from Elijah written during a time of great upheaval, where he expressed his hope that future generations would find strength in truth rather than concealment. His words spoke of reconciliation, of embracing the past with courage. Sarah spent hours cross-referencing names and dates, piecing together timelines and uncovering truths that had long been buried. It was clear that the family had borne heavy burdens, but had also shown immense resilience and love. As she worked, Sarah felt a profound connection with those who came before her, their hopes, fears, and dreams now mingling with her own. She realized that the treasure her grandmother spoke of was not gold or jewels, but the truth itself, the knowledge that her family's legacy was one of courage, endurance, and hope. The farmhouse seemed to breathe with life as the walls whispered stories, and Sarah found herself writing her own chapter in the family's history. That evening, as the sun set in fiery hues, Sarah stood outside, looking up at the ancient willow tree. The leaves rustled softly as if affirming her resolve. Her grandmother's final wish had led her on a path of discovery and healing. And Sarah was ready to carry the legacy forward, embracing the past and forging a future filled with light. The weeks following Sarah's discovery passed in a whirlwind of activity and reflection. News of the hidden cellar and the documents within had spread quietly among the family and a few trusted friends. Invitations were sent out for a gathering at the farmhouse, a reunion to celebrate the Willow legacy, heal old wounds, and embrace the future together. Sarah found herself at the heart of this transformation. She organized meetings, shared stories, and listened deeply as relatives from near and far arrived, bringing their own memories, artifacts, and perspectives. The farmhouse, once a silent relic of the past, buzzed with laughter, tears, and renewed connections. The stories Sarah had uncovered sparked conversations that bridged generations, mending broken ties and opening hearts. One evening, beneath the sprawling branches of the ancient willow tree, Sarah stood alongside her family. The air was warm, carrying the scent of blooming flowers and fresh earth. The setting sun painted the sky in shades of orange and pink. Holding the leather-bound journal close, Sarah spoke of her grandmother's last wish and the journey that had brought them all together. This legacy is not just about what we inherit, she said, her voice steady and filled with conviction. It's about what we choose to carry forward. Our stories, our love, our resilience. These are the true treasures of the Willow family. Tears glistened in many eyes as the family embraced, united by a shared past and a hopeful future. Sarah knew that while the journey had uncovered many truths, it was only the beginning of a new chapter, a chapter where the Willow family would live openly, honoring their history and nurturing the bonds that made them strong. As the night deepened, stars twinkled above like guardians watching over the land and its people. The willow tree stood tall and proud, a living symbol of the family's endurance and the endless cycle of growth, loss, and renewal. Sarah smiled, feeling the weight of her grandmother's wish fulfilled and the promise of a legacy that would continue to thrive for generations to come. The farmhouse was quiet in the early morning light, bathed in soft gold as the sun slowly rose over the rolling hills. Sarah stood by the window, her gaze resting on the ancient willow tree outside, its branches swaying gently in the breeze. It had been months since the family reunion, and life had settled into a new rhythm, one shaped by the truths uncovered and the bonds restored. As she sipped her morning tea, Sarah felt a deep sense of peace. The weight of generations had been lifted, replaced by hope and purpose. The legacy her grandmother entrusted to her was no longer a secret burden, but a living, breathing story, woven into the fabric of her own life and the lives of those she loved. With the farmhouse now a place of warmth and gathering, Sarah had begun to document the entire journey, the letters, diaries, discoveries, and family stories, ensuring that no piece of the past would ever be lost again. She envisioned a future where the Willow legacy would inspire others to embrace their history with courage and compassion. Later that day, Sarah walked through the gardens, her steps light and sure. The air was filled with the scent of blooming flowers and fresh earth, a reminder of the cycles of life, death, and rebirth that had shaped her family. She paused beneath the willow tree, fingers trailing along its rough bark. Closing her eyes, she whispered a silent promise to honor the past, nurture the present, and build a future grounded in love and truth. In that moment, the legacy was hers to carry forward, not as a burden, but as a gift, the last wish of her dying grandmother had revealed more than a hidden treasure. It had unveiled the heart of a family, the strength of their roots, and the light that would guide them for generations to come. As the sun climbed higher, Sarah turned toward the farmhouse, ready to embrace whatever the new dawn would bring.